In this noisy world, everyone wants to be heard. But very few understand the secret power of silence. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words. Silence has the ability to connect us with ourselves, with others, and most importantly, with God. If you truly want peace, wisdom, and strength in life, then learn the art of staying silent. My dear friends, today I want to share with you a simple yet life-changing truth. If you can master silence, you can master life. We live in times where people compete to speak but forget to listen. We argue more but understand less. We react quickly but reflect rarely. Silence is not weakness, silence is strength. Silence is not emptiness, silence is fullness. And when we bring God into our silence, our heart becomes His temple, our mind becomes His garden, and our life becomes His gift. Today, let us dive into why silence is not just golden, but divine, and how staying silent can give us everything we truly seek in life. My dear friends, have you ever noticed that the most beautiful moments of life are not always filled with words? When the sun rises in the early morning, it does not make a sound, yet its beauty inspires us. When the moon shines at night, it does not argue, it simply glows. When the flowers bloom, they do not speak, but their fragrance attracts us. In the same way, silence has its own unique language, and that language is deeply connected with God. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it is the presence of the divine. Many people think prayer only means speaking to God. But true prayer also means listening to God. And listening requires silence. When we quiet down our restless thoughts, we allow space for God's whispers to be heard. Just like in a crowded marketplace, you cannot hear someone's gentle voice unless the noise fades. In the same way, you cannot hear God's guidance unless your mind becomes silent. Let me give you a simple example from daily life. Imagine you are in a room full of people all talking loudly. Someone is trying to tell you something important, but their voice is lost in the chaos. You lean closer, but still you can't catch the words. Now, suddenly, if everyone stops talking, the same soft voice becomes crystal clear. This is exactly how God communicates with us. His voice is always present, but our minds are too noisy with overthinking, worries, and endless conversations. The moment we practice silence, His words become clear in our heart. Silence does not mean we stop living. Silence means we start living with awareness. In silence, we become aware of the subtle blessings around us, the air we breathe, the kindness we receive, the opportunities we get. Often, when we are always talking, we miss these little gifts. But when we pause, when we stay silent for a few moments, gratitude blossoms within us. And that gratitude directly connects us with God. Think of a lake. When the surface of the lake is disturbed with waves, you cannot see your reflection. But when the lake becomes still, it reflects everything around it perfectly. Our mind is like that lake. When it is noisy, disturbed, and restless, we cannot see God's presence. But when we allow it to settle in silence, suddenly His reflection becomes visible. In silence, we discover the peace that was already within us, the guidance that was already waiting for us, and the love of God that was always present. In our daily lives, silence can become our spiritual practice. For example, when you are faced with a difficult decision, instead of rushing to ask 10 people for advice or speaking endlessly about your confusion, try sitting in silence for a few minutes. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and surrender the question to God. In that silence, ideas will come, clarity will arise, and the right choice will shine in front of you. This is not magic. This is the natural outcome of connecting with God through silence. Another simple practice is during anger. Often, When someone provokes us, we immediately react with harsh words and later we regret. But if in that moment we choose silence, not weakness, but conscious silence, we protect our peace. In that silence, we can pray inwardly, God, guide my response. Give me strength not to hurt but to heal. That short prayer, spoken in silence, has the power to save relationships, protect dignity, and increase love. Silence here is not avoidance, silence here is strength. Great saints, sages, and wise leaders across centuries have always valued silence because they understood it. It is the bridge between human beings and God. They spent hours in meditation, not to escape the world, but to connect with the one who created the world. And when they came out of that silence, their words carried wisdom, their actions carried compassion, and their presence carried peace. This is the secret of silence. It fills us from the inside so that we can give to the outside. In today's world, where people are constantly rushing, where conversations are endless, where opinions are louder than truths, silence becomes a rare treasure. Those who can master silence master their life. They do not need to shout to prove themselves. They do not need to argue to win. Their strength comes from within, and that strength is God Himself flowing through their silence. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember you don't always need to speak. Sometimes the best solution is to stay silent, connect with God, and let Him handle the rest. Because when you truly connect with God in silence, you realize you already have everything you need: peace, strength, wisdom, and joy. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is the fullness of God's presence. My friends, let us practice this art daily. Even if it is just 5 minutes every morning, sit in silence, close your eyes, and feel the presence of God. Let your heart say, I am here, I am listening. You will notice your day transforms. You will speak less, but with more meaning. You will listen more and understand deeply. You will feel lighter, calmer, and more connected. And most importantly, you will realize that in silence, you are never alone. God is always with you. That is why I say silence is not just golden. Silence is divine. Silence connects us directly with God, and when we are connected with Him, we lack nothing. We truly get everything in life. My dear friends, in today's fast-paced world, peace has become the rarest treasure. People have everything: money, success, possessions, fame. Yet they complain, I cannot find peace. And what do? They try to find it outside. In music, in distractions, in constant conversations, in entertainment, in endless scrolling on phones. But peace is never found outside. Peace is an inner experience, and silence is the doorway to it. When we learn to stay silent, even for a few moments, the chaos of the world begins to dissolve and our heart begins to rest. Peace is not something you can purchase, nor is it something others can give you. Peace is already within you, like water in a well. But if the surface of the water is constantly disturbed, you cannot see its depth. Silence is what allows the water to settle, revealing the calmness that was always there. Imagine after a long, tiring day you sit alone in your room, lights dimmed, no phone, no conversations, just silence. At first your mind will run here and there, thoughts about tomorrow, worries about yesterday, small annoyances, big plans. But if you remain silent, slowly those thoughts lose their power. Like waves calming down after a storm, your mind begins to rest. And in that rest, you feel a sweet relief, a quiet joy. That is the fragrance of peace. Let me share an example from daily life. Have you ever gone into nature, maybe near a river, a mountain, or a garden, and just sat silently? Without doing anything, you start to feel relaxed. Why? Because nature itself is silent. Trees don't shout, rivers don't argue, flowers don't complain. They simply exist in quiet harmony, and that harmony influences us. In that silence, you experience peace because your mind begins to mirror the stillness of nature. This shows us that silence is not empty, it is full of peace. But the problem is, most of us are uncomfortable with silence. The moment there is no sound, we rush to fill it with music, conversations, or distractions. We think silence is loneliness. But the truth is, silence is companionship, the companionship of your own soul and the presence of God. Silence is not loneliness, silence is wholeness. The more we embrace it, the more peaceful we become. Think of anger. When someone says something hurtful, if we immediately react with words, we fuel the fire. But if we choose silence, even for a short moment, we give space for the fire to cool. In that silence, peace protects us from saying things we might regret later. Many broken relationships could be healed, many arguments could be avoided, and many hearts could be saved if people simply practice the silence of peace. Even in our work, silence plays a vital role. Have you noticed that some of your best ideas come not when you are talking, but when you are sitting quietly? A writer finds inspiration in silence. A thinker finds clarity in silence. An artist finds creativity in silence. Because peace comes when the mind is free from noise, and silence is the key that unlocks it. The same is true in spiritual life. Great souls did not find peace in busy markets or loud arguments. They found it in meditation, in prayer, in silence. They discovered that when the world goes quiet, the heart becomes loud with God's presence. And in that presence, peace flows naturally like a river. So how can we apply this in our daily lives? It doesn't mean we have to live in caves or mountains. It simply means learning to pause. When you wake up in the morning, before you pick up your phone, sit in silence for a few minutes. Breathe deeply. Feel your heartbeat. Thank God for another day. This small practice fills you with peace that lasts throughout the day. Before making a big decision, instead of rushing, sit silently and reflect. That silence will bring clarity and peace of mind. At night, before sleeping, instead of filling your mind with endless videos or conversations, sit quietly and release your worries into silence. You will sleep peacefully because silence has healed your heart. True peace is not about escaping life. It is about embracing it with calmness. When you are silent, you are not avoiding problems, you are facing them with strength. Silence gives you the power to respond instead of react. It gives you the courage to remain steady in chaos. And it gives you the wisdom to realize that no situation is bigger than the peace God has already placed within you. My friends, silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the presence of peace. When you are silent, you realize that peace is not something you have to chase. It is something you already are. You do not need to search for it outside. You only need to uncover it inside. And once you find that peace in silence, no storm of life can shake you. No noise of the world can disturb you, and no fear can control you. My dear friends, have you noticed that many misunderstandings in life come not from what was said, but from what was not understood? In relationships, whether between friends, family, colleagues, or partners, people often rush to speak, to explain, to defend, to argue. But very few take the time to listen. Silence, when practiced with love, becomes a powerful tool that heals bonds, deepens connections, and strengthens relationships. Silence does not mean indifference or ignorance. It means giving space to understand the heart of the other person. When you choose silence instead of constant interruption, you are telling the other person, I value what you are saying. I respect your feelings. And respect is the foundation of every strong relationship. Let us reflect with a daily life example. Imagine a child comes home from school upset. The parent is busy and quickly says, "Don't worry, everything will be fine," and goes back to work. The child remains unheard and feels lonely. Now imagine the parent remains silent, sits beside the child, gently listens without rushing, without lecturing, just offering presence. In that silent presence, the child feels understood, comforted, and loved. The words may not solve the problem, but the silence strengthens the bond. Sometimes people don't need answers, they need someone to listen. This applies to friendships as well. True friends are not those who always give advice, but those who sit silently beside us in our pain. When you are suffering, you may not want words of logic, you want someone's silent support. Their presence, without judgment, without unnecessary talk, gives you strength. Silence here speaks louder than 1,000 words. It says, "I am here with you." That silent companionship is what makes friendships unbreakable. In marriages and close relationships, silence plays an even greater role. Many conflicts start because partners feel the need to win arguments rather than understand each other. If one person speaks harshly and the other immediately responds with equal harshness, the relationship begins to crack. But if one person chooses silence, not the silence of anger, but the silence of patience, the storm settles. Later, when both are calm, a loving conversation can take place. In this way, silence saves relationships from damage. It is like a shield that protects love from unnecessary wounds. Think of two instruments playing in an orchestra. If both try to play loudly at the same time, the sound becomes noise. But when one plays while the other pauses in silence, harmony is created. Relationships are like that. Silence creates space for the other person's music, the other person's emotions, the other person's voice. Without silence, there is no harmony. With silence, there is balance and beauty. Even in the workplace, silence strengthens bonds. Leaders who listen silently to their team build more trust than those who keep speaking without pause. Employees who stay silent and listen carefully understand more and make fewer mistakes. Silence shows humility, and humility earns respect. Relationships at work are not built on how much we speak, but on how much we listen. There is also a spiritual dimension to silence in relationships. When we are silent in conversations, we allow God's wisdom to guide our hearts. Instead of reacting quickly to someone's words, silence gives us a moment to reflect. What is the best way to respond? How can I choose words that heal, not hurt? That short pause of silence allows God to flow through our actions. And when God is present in our relationships, love and respect naturally grow. Sometimes silence is also forgiveness. When someone makes a mistake, instead of shouting at them, staying silent and showing understanding can be more powerful than words. Your silence can say, "I see your mistake, but I value you more than the mistake." That unspoken forgiveness touches the heart deeply and strengthens the bond more than a lecture ever could. My friends, silence is not weakness in relationships, it is wisdom. Silence does not mean we avoid important conversations, but it means we choose the right time and the right words. Silence is the pause that prevents regretful speech. Silence is the space that allows love to grow. Silence is the gentle bridge that connects two hearts. In our daily lives, let us practice this art. The next time someone is speaking to you, resist the urge to interrupt. Stay silent and truly listen. Watch how their eyes light up when they feel heard. The next time you are about to argue, pause in silence. Notice how the storm of anger settles into peace. And the next time someone is in pain, sit silently with them. You will see how your presence becomes their healing. Words have power, yes, but silence has deeper power. Words may convince the mind, but silence touches the heart. When we use silence with love, we strengthen every relationship we have, because silence teaches us patience, silence teaches us compassion, and silence teaches us the greatest lesson of all, that true connection is not built only by speaking, but by understanding. So let us not underestimate the power of silence in relationships. Let us practice it with awareness, with kindness, with love. Because in the gentle pauses of silence, relationships do not weaken, they become unshakable. And when our relationships are strong, our lives are filled with peace, joy, and divine grace. My dear friends, patience is one of the greatest virtues a human being can cultivate, but it is also one of the hardest. In our fast, moving world, where everything is available at the touch of a button, people have forgotten how to wait. We want instant results, instant answers, instant happiness. But life does not always move at our speed. Sometimes things take time, sometimes people take time. Sometimes God's plans unfold slowly, not immediately. In those moments, silence becomes our teacher, and silence becomes the foundation upon which patience is built. Patience is not simply waiting, it is waiting without frustration, and this waiting is only possible when we learn the art of silence. Imagine being stuck in traffic. The horns are blaring, people are shouting, everyone is restless. If you also join in the noise, your anger will grow, your heart will race, and your peace will vanish. But if you sit silently, breathe deeply, and remind yourself that this moment too shall pass, you transform waiting into an opportunity for calm. Silence here does not change the traffic, but it changes you. And when you change, the situation loses its power to disturb you. That is patience born out of silence. In daily life, silence gives us the strength to pause before reacting. Think about moments when someone has insulted you. The natural urge is to immediately respond, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But how many times has this quick reaction led to regret later? Now imagine if in that same moment you chose silence. You remain still, you let the words pass like clouds across the sky, and you do not allow anger to control you. That silent pause becomes your shield. It gives you time to cool down, to think clearly, and to respond wisely if needed. This is how silence trains us to be patient. Let me give you a simple example. A farmer plants seeds in the soil. Does he shout at the soil every morning, demanding, "Why haven't you grown yet?" No. He waits patiently, in silence, watering the seeds daily, trusting that in time they will sprout. Life is exactly like that. Our efforts are seeds, and the results are crops. If we keep shouting, worrying, and making noise, the seeds won't grow faster. Only patience, nurtured in silence, brings the harvest. Even in relationships, patience is essential. Sometimes our loved ones do not behave the way we want. Children take time to learn. Partners take time to change. Friends take time to understand. If we keep complaining, arguing, or forcing, the bond becomes weaker. But if we remain silent, patient, and gentle, we give space for growth. Silence says, "I trust you, I am here, I can wait." And that trust strengthens the relationship. Silence builds patience, and patience builds love. In spiritual life too, silence is the training ground for patience. When we pray, often we want immediate answers. We expect God to fulfill our wishes instantly. But God's timing is not always our timing. His plan is deeper, wiser, and sometimes delayed for our own growth. If we do not practice silence, we become restless, doubting, and frustrated. But if we sit quietly in prayer, In meditation, in silence, we learn to wait with faith. Silence teaches us that just because something has not happened yet does not mean it will never happen. Silence whispers, trust the process, trust God's timing. This is the essence of patience. Think of a pot of water kept on the stove. If you keep stirring it constantly, it will never settle. But if you leave it quietly, patiently, it boils and cooks the food properly. In the same way, when we keep stirring life with constant noise and restlessness, we disturb its natural flow. Silence is the stillness that allows things to unfold naturally. Patience grows when we stop interfering and start trusting. Another powerful example comes from dealing with children. When a child is learning to walk, they fall again and again. A restless parent may shout or scold, but a patient parent remains silent, smiling, encouraging, waiting for the child to stand again. That silence is not passive, it is active patience. It communicates love, strength, and faith. The same applies to us as adults. Life makes us fall again and again, but when we embrace silence, we rise patiently, learning with each step. My friends, silence is not emptiness. Silence is strength, and one of its greatest gifts is patience. Without silence, patience is impossible because noise makes us restless. But with silence, patience blossoms naturally because it teaches us to wait with peace instead of frustration. So the next time life makes you wait, instead of filling the air with complaints and worries, practice silence. When your efforts take time to bear fruit, stay silent and trust. When people test your limits, remain silent and patient. When God delays your answers, sit in silence and believe that He knows the right time. This silence will transform your waiting into wisdom, your frustration into faith, and your impatience into peace. Silence does not mean doing nothing. Silence means doing the right thing, remaining calm, steady, and patient until the right moment arrives. And when you master this art, life itself becomes smoother, relationships become stronger, and your heart becomes lighter. Because in silence, patience grows. And when patience grows, every blessing arrives in its perfect time.